On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about OJ.
No, not really.
Well, you're a Jinjer.
Well, okay, yes. However, the name of the band is Jinjer.
Oh.
I am a pale redheaded fellow.
Yes, and they are a Ukrainian metalcore band. We'll talk more about that after the intro. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Bronze Medals Podcast. I'm Kayle.
I'm OJ.
And today we are talking, yes, indeed, about the Ukrainian metalcore band Jinjer. We'll get to them a little bit later. There's, I think, some very interesting work they've got.
Very interesting.
That I am excited to talk about a little bit later. Some orders of business first, stuff going on in my world that I've been doing lately. Started playing a new video game. It's called Metro Exodus.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, I really am enjoying it so far, despite some of the controversy that surrounded its pre-release period. Because I'm playing it on PC, which is something that some gamers might take offense to because of what 4A and Epic Games did. Because Epic Games has recently launched their own store to compete with Steam. And so they offered a really good deal to 4A Games, who was going to have Metro Exodus be up on Steam. And they offered a good deal to go exclusive. So that meant that everybody that pre-ordered Metro Exodus on Steam was no longer, is first of all not going to get their money back, but is going to get the game in a year. So yeah, if you pre-ordered it on Steam, you spent $60 that you're not getting back, and you're going to be getting a game a year later than you thought you would.
Jeez.
So that was, I think, pretty shitty. But to me, I'm a really big fan of this series. I've read the first book. I have the second one. I haven't read it. I'm not even sure if the English translation for Metro 2035 is out, because it's 33, 34, 35. I'm not sure if the English translation is out yet, but I've played the first two games, really loved both of them, and now Exodus is out, and I'm really liking it so far. People were talking about glitches, and I've only run into one that might not have even really been a glitch. It might have just been error on my part.
Sure, user error.
Yeah, the only other one that I saw was I ran into some of the main character's friends, and the barrels of their guns were red hot, like they had been shooting constantly.
Oh, jeez. And
they were just standing there, and the barrels of their AKs were super heated, and I was like, well, this is weird. The other one was I died in the middle of a raid on this outpost, and reloaded what I thought was the most recent save that then took me back to the beginning of that area, and I lost about 2.5 hours of progress.
Ouch.
And
that's definitely a glitch.
Yeah, it hurt a lot, because I had definitely quick saved before then, and I know there had been a checkpoint before then, so I suppose that one was a glitch. But I thought maybe it's possible I did something, but no, I don't think it was. But I went back and did that all again last night, and actually I didn't mind it so much because I knew a little bit more of what I needed to be doing.
Sure.
I think I had accidentally dismantled some gun sites that I needed in the previous save, so I was like, I've got those back now. So that was nice. Yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. I think the amount of Russian accents I've been hearing will prepare me for some of the pronunciation of people's names coming up here, even though it's Ukrainian, but very similar languages.
Similar.
Though there is some very notable tensions between the two countries in the recent years for obvious reasons.
But odds are, if you live in Ukraine, you speak Russian.
Probably, yeah. We had two Ukrainian exchange students when I was a senior. It was Vlad and Lisa, and yeah, they both, as I understood, were primarily Russian speaking. We had two Ukrainian exchange students that didn't say their names. I'll tell you the other guy's full name once we're done with the podcast, because it is the most wonderfully Slavic thing you will ever have heard. Okay. He has a beautiful name.
I look forward to it.
I love his name. But yeah, they were both really cool. What else happened? Oh, I found out just about a half hour ago that there's a little band called The Damned Things.
Really?
And they're going to be coming out with a new album. I believe I showed them to you a while ago. It is a super group that consists of Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die.
Really?
Scotty Ian from Anthrax. And I believe
I have heard of this.
the drummer and the bassist from Fall Out Boy. And it's kind of like a southern rock type band.
I love it when they do that. They do a super group like what was the name of the one that had Neil Young and it was a southern rock group.
I don't know.
Okay, I'm failing. I should know that off the top of my head.
There
was Metal Axe and Neil Young.
I honestly don't know.
Something about a donkey. No. Nah. Forget it. I'll figure it out.
Something with an ass, maybe.
Something mule. Government mule? No.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're on your own on this one.
Sorry.
Yeah, they're going to be coming out with some new material, which will be their first since 2014, which was their debut album. They haven't come out with anything since it was 13 or 14 since then. So they've announced that they're back and working on stuff, which is exciting. Always nice to. I mean, I love Keith Buckley as a person and as a singer, so I am just excited to hear more stuff from him and probably new ETID soon enough because it's been it'll be 3 years this summer since their most recent album. So hopefully some new stuff from ETID soon enough. But yeah, that was something that I thought was an interesting little tidbit because it's such a like Keith Buckley and Scotty Ian. I get maybe that they would have met and formed this super group, but then the guys from Fall Out Boy, this is a very diverse crew. Especially considering what Fall Out Boy plays these days.
Sure. Which I have seen Fall Out Boy.
Really?
Yeah. At the fair. They came to the fair.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I
took
completely
my daughter.
forgot.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said forgot that way. I completely forgot.
I totally forgot. I don't know. Well, I didn't remember. Fall Out Boy came to the fair.
Fall Out Boy is one of those bands that, I never really got into simply because they were... Even Fall Out Boy's heyday was before my time almost.
Oh, yeah, I suppose. I want to think of them as a newer band, but they're not all that new.
When they were big in the early to mid 2000s or when that style of pop punk and sort of emo was in vogue in the early 2000s was kind of when I wasn't interested in music because I was a kid. And by the time I was 13, 14 and started getting interested in music, the radio era of pop punk had long since gone. And what I had started listening to at that point was either heavier or it was stuff like I didn't get into the Wonder Years till I was in college, but stuff like Real Friends and the singer's name is Parker Cannon. God, why can't I remember the name of the band?
I don't know. It sounds like something after my time.
Yeah, they're a lot of the newer pop punk acts, post 2010, that are much more hardcore influenced, is sort of what I got used to and am still a little bit into, mostly via the Wonder Years. Even though the Wonder Years itself now is more of an indie rock band than it is a pop punk band in a lot of ways.
They've evolved.
They've really evolved, and hopefully soon-ish we'll do. Maybe a themed month where we just bring whatever, doesn't have to be metal.
Yeah, we were going to do that. I thought we were going to do that for March, but...
Will we? Sure.
We talked about that for March.
Sure. Because I was thinking about that before we got started, if we were going to do something for March, and I think that's a good one. We'll take a break from the metal and just bring whatever we want to bring. It can be electronic, it can be pop punk, it could be post-rock, it could be whatever. You're laughing maniacally.
I have ideas. Yeah. In fact, I have an idea for an album because that begins next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, next week will be, it'll still be February when we record, but by the time the episode comes out, we'll be into March. So, yeah, that'll be soon enough that we do that. So get your stuff ready because it's your week next week. So
because I have metal ideas as well.
Yeah.
But
you could still bring that, but the other option is also open.
Okay, so it's something you would enjoy.
Okay.
It's something you would truly enjoy. I don't know if a listener base would truly enjoy that, but
Who cares about them?
fuck them.
Fuck them. Fuck them kids.
You see, I have things to announce as well, but there are two things that come to the top of my mind that I can't.
Oh yeah. I have a pretty big idea of what one of them is.
One has to do with the state fair.
Okay.
And one of them has to do with a potential life change for me. That's the one that you have in mind.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I mean, conversations for later when the microphones are off, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
or if
stuff
it actually happens.
Yeah, stuff's going on in your life at the moment. I guess, do we want to talk about Jinjer?
Sure.
If there's nothing else, other than just quick, I'm continuing my Ken Burns binge. I'm watching National Parks, America's Best Idea or America's Greatest Idea.
Greatest idea, yeah.
And that's great. And
I almost bought a truck.
You almost? Oh yeah. Well, that was a couple weeks ago.
That was a couple of weeks ago. I almost
almost bought a truck, and then were like, I don't have the money for this. I mean,
who knows? It could change.
Oh, okay. Well,
Just saying.
Okay, so Jinjer,
which I had my 12-year-old listen to some of this.
Really?
Yes.
What'd she think?
Okay, well, we listened to the first track of the album. I listened to it with her, and she said, "Pretty voice. She's a beautiful voice."
Yeah.
And I said, "What do you think?" It's a very pretty voice. And then the second track came on, and she went, "Oh wow, who's singing now?" It's the same person.
It's her. Yeah. Tatiana has a really amazing vocal range. So yeah, like I said, this is "King of Everything" by Jinjer, which came out in 2016. Jinjer, as I said at the beginning, is a Ukrainian. They call it metalcore. I guess that's accurate, but to me, it doesn't have a whole lot of the features that I would describe as metalcore. Like, I'm trying to think of a really distinctive breakdown in any of the songs, because to me, that is part of what defines metalcore, is the liberal use of breakdowns,
right?
And like
really
going after it. And I don't recall a moment in here that I really heard one. It certainly has some of the elements of like clean vocals, harsh vocals, but metalcore is not the only metal genre in metal to do that. So
right.
I don't know exactly why Wikipedia insists on referring to them as metalcore, but it does acknowledge that they have a whole bunch of different influences, which I think are fairly apparent in here. They have cited Opeth, Carnival, which is not a band I'm familiar with, might be an Eastern European band, the band Textures, and then other groups, including stuff from like R&B and soul and hip hop and whatnot. There's a little bit of nu metal influence in here.
I can totally hear that.
Yeah, especially in the first full song, past the intro. I think that is the song that the nu metal influence is the most prevalent, or at least most easily identifiable. So yeah, the members of the band currently, you've got Tatiana
Shmelyuk later.
Roman Ibram Kalilov, Eugene Abdukanov, and Vladislav Ulasevich.
That's just fun.
Yeah, it's
a whole lot of fun to say.
Yeah, it's a nice little challenge. Currently, they're signed to Napalm Records. And this is technically their most recent album, not their most recent release. Once they signed to Napalm, after they started getting a bit more attention,
an EP.
They had an EP that is their most, I guess technically their most recent release. The other one is they did a reissue of their album Cloud Factory. So if you look them up on Spotify, you might think that Cloud Factory is their newest album, but it actually came out in 2014.
Right.
Versus King of Everything, which came out in 2016. So yeah, it's just an amazing variety of sounds and sonic textures on this album.
I can hear the Opeth in there as well.
Yeah, especially like if you hear a break and suddenly, oh, that's acoustic guitar. I think the song that is most identifiable on is my favorite song in the album, which is Pisces. And Pisces is just a wild song in general.
Track 4, track 5.
It's pretty late. I think it might be like 7.
Okay, right.
So Pisces is it's the penultimate track on the album, and that one is sort of this wild ride of very, very pretty clean singing, acoustic guitar, some clean electric guitar in there, and then it is just like someone chopped it, and then suddenly it's really heavy.
Said go,
and you hear the deepest growls on the album, and it's just so impressive because I've never heard I've never heard a woman who can go that deep. I know that might sound a little that sounds both that's both a double entendre and maybe sounds a little sexist, but it's, generally speaking, when you hear women in metal, you don't necessarily hear growls that are
vocals
that
deep, right?
Yeah, the vocals are not necessarily that quite that deep.
She can really go deep with her throat there. I mean, that's
God damn it. God damn it. What have I done?
I wasn't even going to do it until it washed over your face like...
Which is the sound that someone would make. I couldn't fucking resist. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. All right, we'll stop. We'll stop with that foolishness for the time being. But
for a moment, anyway.
She has an amazing range, I'd say.
Amazing clean vocals.
Yeah. And like in so many different styles of clean vocals as well. Like in the first track, you hear she's got some very high vocals and sort of getting up into the top of her range in the intro. And then the biggest surprise in the album is actually the last song called Beggar's Dance, which just kind of comes out of nowhere. And it's just this very, I don't even know what style to describe it as. It's kind of like a down home sort of folky, like
there's some hoedown in there.
I just called it a ditty. Like I don't know what else to call it. I could feel a little bit of sort of like Eastern European type influence in that. So maybe it's sort of closer to like Slavic folk music or something, but it just comes out of nowhere. And she does this very, I want to call it like kind of R&B type vocal over it to close out the album.
As they call it, Massima.
Massima?
Yeah. Massima is when you use one syllable to hit many notes.
And I didn't know that was a thing.
That's called Massima, yeah.
One syllable to hit many notes.
Yeah.
So you kind of go all over the place while you're just saying
something Christina Aguilera is really known for, yeah.
Just putting like a lot of vibrato on one.
A lot of vibrato, lots of...
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, and she's just playfully going along to the beat of this, just acoustic, just don't. It's that's literally the beat, and it just comes out of nowhere, and I love it for that because I feel like if it were on like any other album, it would be so out of place as to just be like almost obnoxious. But this has such a wide variety of sounds that you hear that and it's kind of like, yeah, no, that's completely what I expected from them is something like this. And it's not like it isn't like the song is completely silly or ridiculous.
No.
The lyrics still have a lot of bearing on what the lyrical content and the rest of the album. I'm trying to figure out if there's really a story or a concept to this.
I don't think there is.
I'm not entirely sure. There's multiple references to the King of Everything in both the track and Beggar's Dance. There is also references to that. There's a lot of references to Neptune in Pisces, but Pisces is, of course, the fish that is, I believe, the child of Neptune, which is a song or a title. Line in the song. I called it the wrong thing twice.
It's fine.
You
got there.
I got there eventually. Yeah, it's a line in the song. I'm trying to figure out if there's anything else in the album, and I'm not entirely sure. Generally, her accent is very good, as far as like it's not super apparent that you're listening to a Ukrainian that is singing this.
Right.
Like generally her pronunciation is very good.
She doesn't have a thick accent.
Yeah, it's not a super thick Eastern European accent, although it's a lot more present, I feel like, on Beggar's Dance, or at least a lot more noticeable on Beggar's Dance than a lot of the other songs.
But that's because it's the ditty.
Yeah, that's probably because it's the ditty. It's not quite like Swallow the Sun, where it's like, yeah, no, these guys are definitely Finnish. I can hear the Finnish in his voice.
Sure.
This, on the other hand, was a lot less apparent, generally speaking.
And we were talking about that earlier. Bands that you you hear them do the accent of their home.
Yeah,
in their music.
I appreciate that on in certain areas. Like, I kind of wish that. I wonder how I'd feel about Keith Urban if I could tell he was from New Zealand.
Is it? I thought he was Australian.
No, I thought he was.
Is he a Kiwi?
Yeah, I thought he was an Aussie for the longest time, and then I saw someone on Reddit referred to him as being from New Zealand, and I was like,
wow.
That doesn't sound right. I'm gonna look this up to see if I can prove you wrong.
No.
Oh shit, he's from New Zealand.
Awesome.
I think I mostly thought he was from Australia because he's married to Nicole Kidman, who is
from New Zealand. Yeah, or
no, she's Australian. Now you're getting it all twisted.
She's Tasmanian. No, she's not.
I mean, she could be. Well, she could just be a resident on the island of Tasmania. Being from Tasmania does not make you into
a Tasmanian devil.
Yeah,
no.
It does not make you into the Tasmanian devil. She could have just been from Tasmania, which is a state in Australia.
Right. Wonawunga.
Yep, whatever that was. Was that from? Was that supposed to be like
Tasmanian devil?
Does he say that? I don't remember him saying that.
Eats rabbits. Wonawunga.
Tasmanian devils are a little bit hiccup from the beer.
Yeah.
They're disgusting and terrifying creatures.
And they smell funny.
They're also kind of cute, though, in a way. When you see one that's not currently tearing apart something that is dead, they're actually kind of cute looking.
We're having, by the way, he said he hiccuped from the beer, Old English.
Yeah, we're having Old English, which I reminded you of because if you're a fan of memes, we're going to enter into the meme corner here for a second. The B-movie meme is mostly dead, but recently I found it's completely dead. If I'm being honest, it's completely dead. But I found a video the other day, which is the entire B-movie trailer, but dubbed over in Old English. Mm-hmm. And you might be thinking like, oh, I bet I know what Old English sounds like. You know, it's lots of yees and thuses and whatnot. I bet it just sounds like Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. No. This is like Anglo-Saxon Old English.
Old English before the vowel shift. It's like prior to Shakespeare. Shakespeare is technically New English.
This is like 700 to 800 AD.
Right.
Before the Norman invasion, even like. It sounds actual Old English sounds a lot more like German and Norwegian than English.
Right, and if you could read Beowulf out loud.
Yeah. Well, and interestingly enough, that is what it's B in Old English is Beo, which kind of harkens back, I think, to how sort of the common root between the words for bee and bear, technically speaking.
Sure.
Because in some languages, not only was bear technically brown thing, but it also referred to the thing that, in the sense that it referred to bear, it also referred to something that liked bees. And so that sort of became the term.
It just meshed.
For bees. It kind of meshed. And I think Beowulf might have literally been like either bear hunter or like wolf referred to like a wolf.
Wolf. So it'd be a brown wolf.
Or something like that. Like I don't know exactly what it was, but I think Beowulf, I read one time, the name itself would suggest that you are a hunter of bears, or at the very least that maybe you just are a bear because a bee wolf.
So
it's like a wolf, but it likes bees.
Does wolf mean hunter then?
Well, in modern German that's Jäger, but
Jäger,
and I believe that is also in Norwegian and Swedish. I think is very similar, but. Like wolf means wolf, but when you think of a wolf,
something that hunts.
It's something that hunts. Mm-hmm. So it's basically the meaning. It's not the literal translation, but it basically is the meaning. This is the linguistics corner now, which is something that I've always had a keen interest in.
Oh yeah,
I like etymology and linguistics. But
I love bugs too.
Hey, that classic.
That's a word joke.
That classic bit.
Yeah. You know, honestly, if I did actually go to real college rather than just broadcast school, that's one thing I would study. I would study etymology.
I
love that.
Yeah. And it's interesting, I think, especially if you...
The biology of words.
And like, I think in order to be an etymologist, you kind of have to learn linguistics as well and learn those languages. Like I would love to learn Old Norse. I think that'd be very interesting. It has no practical use whatsoever besides maybe being close enough to Icelandic, but when am I going to need to go to Iceland? And also, why would I have to learn Icelandic to go around Iceland? Because literally everyone there speaks English.
Be like learning Sanskrit.
Yeah. It's unnecessary. Or like learning Dutch. People who live in the Netherlands don't even speak Dutch.
No.
Except for like old people. I had a friend who was from the Netherlands who I did not know was Dutch for about a year until...
Even their accents.
Yeah. I told him that he was... Or I mentioned something about him being American as well. And he's like, I'm not American, I'm Dutch. Like, what the fuck? Why am I just learning this now? You're Dutch? He's like, yeah. And he's like, speak some Dutch. And he spoke Dutch. And then I was like, why does your English sound so good? And it's like, well, I mean, for the most part, we don't even speak English, or we don't even speak Dutch to each other. It's mostly like the older generation that speaks Dutch for the most part, but we all have to learn it. So it's a better version of like the situation in Irish schools where they still teach Irish as a class, but hardly anyone speaks it.
Like Irish is in like Gaelic.
Yeah, like Irish Gaelic.
Right.
Or Gaelic, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, Gaelic would be more
would be
Scottish.
from Gaul. Well, Gaelic would be
good.
Gaelic would be from Gaul.
Gaulish, yeah.
Which I suppose the closest thing would be
French.
Well, not technically French. I'm thinking more Old French, which is probably actually more of a Germanic language because Old French would be Frankish.
Right.
Gaelic would be closer to Breton, or
Gotcha.
yeah, I believe it's Breton in the Brittany area.
From Brittany,
in northern France.
Brittany, bitch.
Brittany, it's Brittany, bitch. Because that is one of the few areas where like a Celtic language, one of the few areas outside of Ireland and Wales and Scotland. The only place on continental Europe where a Celtic language is spoke in any amount of numbers, which is crazy because like, if you look at the amount of Europe that the Celts used to inhabit, it's just insane. But those Germans needed to migrate.
They did, and procreate as well. Their language, their culture, and their biology, all of that.
It just got all over the place. They really colored outside the lines.
Yeah, that's weird that Germans would do something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that Germans would kind of sweep over most of Europe and attempt to assert their culture over the native peoples. It's weird that they would do something like that.
It's not something that would be ingrained in German culture that they would want to do that.
Oh, okay. We veered so far off topic, but
well,
it's okay.
Here's the question then. Ukrainian, what is the origin of that language then?
It's an East Slavic language.
It is an Eastern Slavic.
Yeah, like Slavic languages, I believe, are mostly derived from Greek, I think. Well, I know the Cyrillic alphabet is. I don't know about the language itself. I can't remember as far as my like migration period knowledge of tribals, Slavs are one of my poorest subjects as far as like where exactly their origins are, but the languages are certainly much more themselves rather than sort of when you get to Western Europe, it's this very strange amalgamation where like besides German and Norse and different Scandinavian derived languages, everything else is such a mishmash. I guess Italian and Spanish are a little bit better, but like French and English are complete, hybrids.
Oh, sure.
They're complete chimeras.
Whereas Spanish and Italian are very romantic.
Yeah, they're the Latin influence is still much more present, whereas in French you have a lot of influence from the Germanic Frankish.
Sure.
But then later, they adopted more of a Latin type language, and you still probably have some loanwords from Gaelic at the time. So it's French is a lot less of a chimera than English, but English is still very much. English is just ridiculous. Ukrainian, I don't really know how different actual Ukrainian is from Russian. I'm not entirely sure how different it is, or how different it would have been at least pre-Soviet era. Yeah. Well, I suppose pre-Soviet they were still part of the Russian Empire, so I don't know. Again, I don't know how different it was.
Most of the Ukrainians, I know their names have 12 consonants.
Yeah.
And 3 vowels.
A lot of Vitches, a lot of Slavs, a lot of that sort of thing.
Yes.
Again, I have to tell you my friend's name once we're done.
It's not Nechaparenko, is it?
No,
Okay,
it isn't.
'cause I know some Nechaparenkos.
I think it's better, to be honest.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that once the microphones are off. I wish I could say it, but I know this guy. He's a cool dude, and I don't want to necessarily say his name out in public on the internet. And not that we have millions and millions of viewers.
No, and I know I've done that already. I look back on some of the ones that we've done, and I've mentioned some friends' whole names. I wish I hadn't.
Because what if we do get super popular one day?
What if happens?
What happens then? I don't know.
I don't know.
So yeah, that Jinjer. Good God, what happened?
Jinjer with the 2 J's.
With 2 J's, yeah, it's Jinjer. Some things, other things. I've mentioned basically all of the notes that I had written down. What was your favorite song?
My favorite song, actually, I like that second song. I really enjoy the one where she comes in, immediately, with the growl, just this vocals, and a lot of that the death metal guitar in there. It's that sort of that Opeth and nu metal sort of flavor that goes in with what they sort of have embroidered into their sound.
Yeah, that was Captain Clock. I had to get up and check on it. Yeah, Captain Clock is the second song. So yeah, that
Captain Clock, yes.
Yeah, that song I think is probably the best showcase of all of their influences of every style. And yeah, I think there's a lot more death metal on this, a lot more death metal influence on this that I hadn't necessarily expected. I had listened to it briefly, like earlier in the year, or earlier last year, technically. I'd been listening to it briefly, but then now, like, having been listening to a lot of more classic death metal recently, I was like, yeah, no, I hear a lot more of that influence every once in a while from this album. And it's, I really appreciate it. Because generally speaking, again, I don't know why Wikipedia insists on calling this metalcore. If anything, I'd call it more progressive metal.
Sure.
Or maybe even alternative metal.
Alternative death metal.
Alternative death metal, or like I feel like alternative metal is a dead term at this point. Like, there's not really many bands that are still going that you can call alternative metal.
What is the alternative to metal?
I guess CKY is still around.
Sure.
But like
the Cologne.
Yeah, yep, like the Cologne. But like I'd call this like alternative progressive metal or something like that. That's just getting to be too many subgenres. Too many subgenres and
shoved into one bag.
Too many prefixes, basically. But it's difficult to describe because there's just such an eclectic collection of influences on this record, and I really appreciate it. I really, really like it. So stuff that they've been up to lately. They have been on a couple of tours, of course, since King of Everything came out. 2017, they toured across Europe with Arch Enemy, as well as their first tour in North America alongside Cradle of Filth. Shortly after that, they announced that they would reissue Cloud Factory. Currently, they're working on their 4th studio album, so interested to see something new from them. And they released an EP called Micro, which you mentioned earlier,
which I did listen to.
I hadn't listened to it actually, so I'm gonna have to listen to it. That came out in January, so that was actually pretty recent. That's maybe why I didn't necessarily. I mean, I saw it on Spotify, but I didn't realize it was so recent.
Honestly, I listened to that one first, and then I asked you, wait, which album was we were supposed to listen to? This one was really short.
Okay.
And then you came back with King with Everything. I'm like, okay, cool. All right, well, I'm going to listen to more of this than I thought.
So as of last month, they're currently on tour with Amorphous, Soilwork, and Nailed to Obscurity, which I believe are 3 death metal bands. I think Soilwork is like a melodic death metal band. I think is
Amorphous is also Finnish, I believe.
Okay. Soilwork I know is Swedish. I'm not sure about Nailed to Obscurity.
Yeah.
That sounds like a death metal band name. So
Nailed to Obscurity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nailed to Obscurity.
Amorphous does a lot of sort of folk influenced death metal sort of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's I'm hearing Opeth in my head. I don't know if it actually sounds like that.
Not quite. You'd have to give it a listen.
Okay.
You should.
Yeah.
I recommend it.
I'll have to give it a try. Amorphous. At first glance, when I saw that, I thought it said Apophis, and then I was having Stargate flashbacks. I love Stargate.
I haven't watched it. I've seen the movie. I've never watched the TV show.
The movie is decent. I think the TV show is great. Mm-hmm. Or at least like the first 7 seasons of SG1 are really good. I think the last 3 I can't remember how many seasons in total it was, because I think I don't remember when they started the Ori arc, because they have their different main enemies as they go along. Sure. First it's the specific gold, and then they've got the replicators, and then there is the Ori in the later series once Richard Dean Anderson sort of bowed out, and then Claudia Black and Ben Browder stepped in as main characters because they were done with Farscape at that point. Which Farscape is another sci-fi series that I haven't seen forever. We have a coworker that despises it, and I have rather fond memories of it, so I might have to check it out and see if it actually holds up. But
that's another one of those conversations where, it happens. I have to admit something. I hate to admit this. Sometimes you and our other coworker will get into conversations that I have to escape.
Yeah, we do that a lot, and we'll have the same conversation over and over again.
Oh, they're talking about Farscape. I have to do anything else. I have to.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% acknowledge that it happens. I just don't think either of us can help it.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, you're perfectly welcome to escape, because at the very least, if you were to get up and leave, it would let the two of us know, oh, hey, maybe we should stop having the same conversation again.
But it doesn't. I've noticed that sometimes. I've actually where you've had one of these conversations where you're at odds about some sort of sci-fi something or something or D&D or somewhere, and you're doing this, and I'm like, I could use an omelet about now. And then I get up and I go get an omelet, and I'll stop by the post office on the way back, and I'll make. And
we'll still be talking.
You'll still be talking about it. I'm like, oh shit, they're doing it. They're still going.
It happens when two giant nerds sit in the same office. It happens.
See, I like to consider myself at least somewhat of a nerd, but I have no attention span, so I can't.
I don't fault you for that in the slightest. I get annoyed with myself very often and beat myself up about talking too much. So, what time is it, by the way? Speaking of talking too much.
What time is it?
Let
me take a look. See
how long we've been going.
We've been going 42 minutes.
Okay, so we got some more time to bullshit.
Got
some more time to kill, because God forbid we wrap this up, 10 minutes early.
Which is fine. And I didn't think I was going to be able to do this.
Really?
I didn't think I was going to be able to stay on topic, which I can't. When do we stay on topic?
Yeah, we never do, but...
No, I don't know that I was going to be... another thing I'm going to be able to do soon, and I may need your help on this.
Okay.
Is that a friend of mine down in Bismarck, North Dakota, wants me to come down and DM some 5th edition games.
Some Dungies and Draggies.
The last thing I DM'd, I think it was 2nd.
Yeah, so it's been a while. It'll be technically a completely different system for you then, because you're used to THAC0.
I'm used to THAC0 to hit an armor class of 0. And
So I'll have to teach you D20, which isn't hard because D20 is simple as fuck. Or at least D20, as it is iterated in 5th edition, is pretty simple. So it shouldn't be too hard to teach you that.
But there are a lot more classes.
Yeah. I suppose there are. Yeah. I think 3rd edition still beats out in class variety at this point.
Class variety and race variety.
Yeah. There's a fair amount now. 5th edition has gotten pretty expansive in the last 2 years since they've started putting out more and more books. I think there's another one coming out soon enough that might be an expansion. But recently they've had Mordenkanon's Tome of Foes, and I'm looking at the titles behind you there because that's where all my D&D books are. Well, not all of them. A couple of them are spread across my apartment. But Tome of Foes and Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and a couple other expansion books, Volo's Guide to Monsters, introduced a whole bunch of new races. So, yeah, it'll be...
Gary's rolling over in his grave.
I think Gary would be rather happy.
You think he would be happy?
I think he'd be fairly happy.
that the tradition is being expanded and kept on.
Yeah. I don't know why he'd be dissatisfied that the game he invented is still being played and enjoyed by people. I don't know why he'd be disappointed in that.
Okay, I retract my former statement.
Come on. You think Gary's a dick or something?
I don't know. I never met the guy.
Yeah,
I never met Gary.
I also never met him, but I assume he was rather nice. Did you know he was a Jehovah's Witness?
No.
Gary Gygax, the man who created Dungeons and Dragons, a game that numerous parents in the 1980s accused of Satanism, was himself a Jehovah's Witness.
When I was a young kid, I asked because my grandmother I don't know if you know this or not, but we're distantly related to Horace Mann, if you know who that is.
I don't.
He's one of the fathers of education.
Okay.
My grandmother's huge on education, books.
Yeah.
She said, what kind of books would you want? And I said, there's this book series called Dragonlance that I wanted.
Okay.
And so she researched it. Dragonlance, ooh, that sounds like fun fantasy. And it's TSR hobbies. No, that's Satanism. No, you can't have those because we don't worship Satan in this family.
Oh, God.
Oh, man, if she only knew.
Now you're on a podcast where we've said "Hail Satan" I don't know how many goddamn times.
Honestly, I think somewhere in the back of her head she would laugh about it. She would think
probably.
She'd think it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Well,
she's dead.
Like the weird the thing that has always confused me about like the whole Dungeons and Dragons is Satanism argument. Like it's like, yeah, there's demons in the game, but you realize you're
supposed to fight against them.
You realize they're enemies.
Yeah.
You know? I suppose later editions introduced the tiefling, which is like a half demon that you could play as, but more of a half devil. Not that there's a difference in the Bible, but demons and devils are two different things in Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
It's a very important distinction because one is chaotic evil and the other one's lawful evil. Mm-hmm. Not going to tell you which.
I think we can guess.
I think you could guess. I think we can guess. I think you out there know which one is which. I'll let you figure it out though, listener. God, I'm such a fucking nerd. I love it though. I love being a giant nerd.
You know, and shout out to my sister. Did I tell you that she was wondering whether or not we'd because she. Speaking of religion, I suppose since we're there,
okay,
she is very devout religious,
okay,
and she does Christian music, and a lot of it is very folky, a lot of it is very country, and she says, "Well, but you do all that devil worship music," and I said, that's not actually 100% true. I said, we've actually done.
At least one Christian band here.
One Christian band here. I said, you should give it a listen. She's like, what? Okay.
Yeah. There's more that I could probably pull out when we could talk about August Burns Red at some point. I still dig them quite a bit.
Or there was a band called Bloodgood when I was a teenager.
Bloodgood.
You've never heard of Bloodgood?
I haven't.
They're sort of a pseudo thrash band. There's Skillet.
Oh yeah, Skillet.
I don't know if you.
I remember the heyday of Skillet. Yeah, I didn't really listen to them.
They're the Nickelback of Christian music.
Basically, yeah. They're the Nickelback of like Christian rock, Christian metal, that sort of thing. Yeah, there's a bunch of other ones that I know of. I think August Burns Red and Silent Planet are the main two that I've stuck with.
Sure.
Mostly because they aren't. There are a couple Christian metalcore bands that are so unbearably preachy. And it doesn't necessarily come through in their albums all the time, but I remember I was at Warped Tour.
Yeah.
And at the time I was listening to a band called For Today, and they're I think a bit heavier on the Christian element of their sound, but I listened to them and the set stopped for about 2 minutes. The lead singer was just preaching. It's like, "Hey, you know what? You do your thing. I'm gonna step out just because this it's not for me all that much. I don't like that too much." A friend of mine that I had in college, there was a rock show coming through or like a metal show coming through, and I was like, "Hey, you should come to this show." And the last band that went up, I shit you not, for a full half hour.
For a full half hour?
A full half hour. No music. I think the guitarist was maybe noodling a little bit in the background.
Mm-hmm.
A full half hour, this guy just talked. And so about 3 minutes in, stepped out, sat on a bench for a while, continued to step out, went outside, and was texting a girl that I was interested in at the time, and just walked around, went back inside. This was at the State Fair Center. Went back inside, sat back down at that bench, was still going on. It was a full half hour, and it was a little unbearable, and I don't remember if I left, because it's like I have no problem with people being religious.
Sure.
I'm not religious myself, but I have absolutely no problem with people being religious. I like to say non-religious just because people around here, especially if you say atheist, they think that you're going to be really militant and anti-theist, and that's not me. I think everybody gets something out of religion, and if somebody gets something positive out of it, then more power to them. But I've never felt that sort of calling or that sort of attraction to it. So I
more power to you.
More power to me.
More power to you, man.
I guess, but I just have never felt that way.
I've actually been to conventions.
Really?
Yeah. Like I have signed books from Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got no problem with people being religious just because it's like, hey, like do your thing. I don't mind. Just don't get in my face about it, because there are things that I certainly don't agree with. There are certain tenets, and there are certain parts of those religions that don't necessarily agree with some of the things that I disagree with.
Sure.
Like they would agree with me. It's like, yeah, we don't like that part either. But
don't murder anybody. I'm down with that.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, I'm down.
But it's still, generally speaking, that's just not me. I think I'm perpetually in search of a religious experience, but I don't know if I'm in search of any sort of God.
Oh man, dude! Next time I get a 10 strip or something. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Mrs. Borner. I'm not going to make your son try acid.
Oh God. Yeah. No, it's I
Talk to me later.
Yeah, like I'm in search of a religious experience of some type, but I in my life have never found that through actual religion.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know where I'll get that from, but I imagine I'll get that somewhere.
That's a fulfilling life. Is the search.
Yeah, that's if what else is there but the search for any kind of meaning? I think that's just life, is a search for meaning, because I do subscribe to some nihilist ideals. Like, I don't think life has any intrinsic meaning. Yeah, there's no inherent or intrinsic meaning to life, in my opinion. But I think part of the beauty of life is that now you get to figure it out. You get to go out there and find something for yourself that works for you. And I think, it's important that you do at least look for it. And maybe even the search itself will be fulfilling.
A couple of books I need to give to you. You'll have to remind me later.
Okay.
The Beauty of Finding Things Out is one of those books.
It sounds like I like the title already.
Yeah. The guy who wrote it is one of the guys who helped develop the atomic bomb. So.
Is it like Robert Oppenheimer or somebody different?
Somebody different.
Just somebody else that was in the Manhattan Project.
He was part of the Manhattan Project.
Okay.
It's part of the Manhattan Project.
Was it Tony Stark's dad? Howard Stark?
Yes, Kayle.
It was Howard Stark.
Howard Stark.
It was Howard Stark? Okay, cool.
No, it was a man who...
Superheroes are real.
The man who would later become a professional bongo player.
Interesting.
Yeah.
From nuclear physics to bongo player.
Yeah, he was also a professor and everything else. And,
okay.
And you could see videos of him playing bongos, and a lot of the things that he said were just brilliant.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Richard Feynman.
Okay, that sounds familiar now. Yeah. I probably have heard that name before. When I was on a Wikipedia binge about nuclear weapons.
Probably.
Which I do that a lot. I go on binges on Wikipedia and look stuff up because it's a wonderful resource. I use it for band information if it's available. Sometimes it's not particularly plentiful on there, but Wikipedia is great. I need to go. I should donate. I should really donate some money.
You should.
Because it's a fantastic resource.
We all should.
It's free, and I believe it's Creative Commons resources, isn't it? Isn't it like a completely free? I mean, it's free to visit, obviously, but like I think it's like free to cite and use and mention. It's
Well, sure.
It's a nonprofit, basically.
Right, but it's so dancing with the devil because
sometimes, yeah.
it's Wikipedia.
I think Wikipedia is far less the Wild West than it once was.
Right.
I remember there's a guy that recently became a short-lived meme on Reddit where he is responsible for writing, I think, 29,000 articles on Wikipedia, and he has edited somewhere on the order of millions.
Holy crap.
And yeah, he's like basically the patron saint of Wikipedia, other than like the people who created and run it. Like he does this entirely on his own time. Wikipedia does not pay him a cent to do this. But he has contributed to so many articles, written so many articles, edited so many articles. I don't remember his name.
Donny Osmond. I don't know why that would be.
Why? No. Well, what was Marie doing then?
She was just busy being a little bit country.
And advertising for Nutrisystem. I think that's why you said Donny Osmond, because we're at work and saw that Nutrisystem commercial earlier today.
Maybe.
Okay, I think we're probably at time now. So
time to wrap down.
Thank you. Yo, my name is Kayle, and I'm here to say I love heavy metal in a major way. Is that the wrap down you were expecting?
Oh Lord.
Suddenly, I found him. He's in.
I found the Lord.
Rap.
He's in rap music. Have you ever seen that? There was a preacher and his wife that did that rap.
Oh yeah,
that was great.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, it's
so terrible.
Oh, it was back when I was still doing vocals. We'll finish up soon enough, but first, when I was doing vocals, I saw somebody made a gent version of the beat to that track, and I was so totally going to do a screamed cover of that. I probably would have changed the one especially questionable lyric in there, said out loud on the internet by an aged white man. But I'll let you, the listener, guess what it was.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to do that, and I didn't end up doing it. Now I can't do vocals at all anymore, so I still need to get my throat checked out. And
that's what she said.
Hey, we brought it all the way back around. All right, everybody. If you like this nonsense that we do where we talk about etymology and linguistics for 20 minutes instead of the band, you should check us out on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Those are the two most available platforms where we always post our episodes. Mm-hmm. And occasionally I post on Facebook relatively more often, especially if there's something going on or something I feel like sharing. I tend to forget about Twitter, but we always post our episode links there. So if you like us on there, follow us on there, and then share or retweet our content to your friends if you think that your friends should also be listening to it. Because we don't pay for advertising, because I'm a cheap-ass motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. And cheap and broke.
Cheap and, well, I'm not broke, but I'm close enough.
You're not broker than I am.
I suppose. I have a fat checking account right now and a very slim savings account. That's because that's how I roll.
That's how you roll.
Yeah, I need to start. Need to put some money in savings since my checking account is so fat, because I don't need all that stuff in my checking account. Because you don't have
because you have nothing in your life.
I have nothing in my life to fulfill me. I have no children. I have no pets. I have no significant other.
Exactly.
I am a lonely and depressed man.
There you go, ladies. If you're looking for somebody who's lonely and depressed.
If you're looking for an extreme nerd, I'm your guy.
He's very loyal.
Do you want to talk about axes and the history of the migration period for 30 minutes? Because I do. That should be my Tinder bio. And with Tinder, we've come to the end of the social media promotions. We're also technically on Instagram. I never post there. You can follow us and see pictures that I've posted in the past. Let's see. I suppose that's about it. Time to end it.
Yeah. All right.
So thank you all very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist podcast. I'm Kayle.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.